Здравствуйте, друзья! If you speak to me in Russian, unfortunately, it's a long time when I spoke actively before, so it takes to express some thought in Russian. So forgive me, I will be speaking in English. Opposite to all the other conferences, I will now ask you, could you please take your phones? Take your phones and do we see that? Oh, super. Take the QR code. You should be navigated to the Slido. And I would like to ask you, please cooperate with me. Write down what problems hit you in the last few years. Write down, какие проблемы вы видели, прожили года. If you can, now, in which language should we write it down? In Russian? English, please. In English. You can have as many answers as you want. Does it work for you guys? Can you see that? Super. Write it down, please. We should start seeing, actually, what is important for us we are facing. Because, as Tatiana said, we should have a vision as a nation, as a country, as industry. Today, we are all humans, right? We are all individuals. And any future consists of individual hopes. So what do we have here? War. Big problem for all of us, right? Much bigger for some of people, obviously. Moving, lack of freedom, this is what you mean. Depression, okay. Immigration. Problems of professional growth. I was forced to relocate, disappointment, forecast and planning, injustice, pandemic, unfair attitude, favoritism, moving, confidence, team change, money, politics. There was something, Shalimo. Shalimo, what does it mean in English? Anybody can help me? Empty hopes, loneliness, isolation of Belarus and Belarusians. Maybe it feels unfair, right? That every individual is put into the same bin because of the government, maybe, right? Must feel really bad. It's good that we never lose a sense of humor. It's essential. Revolution. If I understand correctly, there is many more people online, so you can actually contribute as well. Now, what we are creating now in this so-called word map is our definition of perfect storm for people who are in this room and who are somewhere behind the screen. What is actually perfect storm? Is concept which comes from meteorology. It's a particularly violent, a rare combination of adverse, negative, meteorological factors. So it's something what you never expect to happen altogether. It's a perfect storm. It's the worst storm, actually. Or we can use it as especially bad situation caused by a combination of unfavorable. I'm Ivana. I have served 27 years in boards of some of the top 10 most admired companies like Johnson & Johnson, customer-facing roles. And last few years, actually, I went as a freelancer to help companies, to help leaders. Mentored some 500-600 startups around the world. I cooperate with several, including, or maybe starting with Google for Startups, And I work with leaders in huge corporations as well. I do lectures, I do workshops. And as I speak, I can actually see one thing. Any disaster can be transformed. That perfect storm, which we have seen, is disaster, right? That's a huge disaster. Maybe, but it depends on our point of view. Now, I brought to your attention the Aris in the Love balloon in the skies. It's a little girl and a balloon. Now, when you shout out, скажите, пожалуйста, пожалуйста, right? Скажите, what do you see? Is it negative picture or is it positive picture? Please. Positive. Negative. It's both actually. It depends on the point. Say, she just lost the balloon. Huh? It happened to us, right? When we were little. But maybe she's catching it, exactly. Or go high. It depends on the point of view. That's why Banksy is not a hype. Huge artist of today. And I really recommend going to the exhibition if you have a chance. I always exhibition, I understood he's a miracle for us. So, if we have the point of view, select actually what we see. The truth is in the eyes of the person who is observing reality. Truth is not. And now, interesting thing for entrepreneurs. What happens if something, probably most of you know the history, but the painting went, it's spraying, on the wall, but the painting went to the auction in Sotheby's. And your built-in hidden mechanism started to destroy the painting. Now, did it devalue the art? It increased. Is there anybody who would say it's probably devalued, it is destroyed, it has zero value? Well, you might be surprised that it increased 18 times versus the price of the original painting, or $25 million. Okay, so actually damage, it depends what we do with that and whether there is any value even before. So can actually bring a lot of additional value. Last year, when he passed away on winter solstice, and he was telling me, anything away from you, any asset, money, whatever you have, the only thing nobody can take away from you, your knowledge, your experience. And I'm remembering it so, and all that experience, what we have through our lives, norms, can work for our advantage. But it's on us, as Tatiana said, we can decide what we do with that. Make more value out of it, or if we want to feel a victim. And I know that people who are in this room and behind the screens, you have selected to build a new future and more value. We need to use wisely. Because even before everything happened, and we miss our freelance businesses, we did a lot of mistakes, right? I did. Who else did? We all made mistakes. But we also had very hard-earned successes. Who had? Okay. At the past forensically. And let's learn from that. Because something and the more valuable future. And these are biases, which are very much, has to deal with them. What are the biases I selected for you? Well, the first one, however, the self-serving bias, it's not my fault. Somebody else did it. Some external circumstance, you don't have the business anymore. And while sometimes there are really strong external circumstances, what will serve us really, really well is, regardless of that, to set it aside and say, okay, or was the perfect storm for me actually, most of you would say no, I know. But be brutally honest and say, I do differently, so that next time I don't have to say it's not my fault. Really, really strong. The second bias, in Harvard Business Review, you can find, they did the research that one of the biggest biases was founding company after company, some of them fail, some of them are successful, that those people actually, with being over-optimistic, it's coming again from psychological, deep causes, root causes, which we had in the past is very painful. And this is our coping mechanism, being really very optimistic now. A little bit more pink color than necessary. Now, being optimistic is critically important, otherwise we will be victims, right? Check from time to time, am I overly optimistic? Because I'm trying to and am I promising to my family, to my community, to my employees, to my investors? Because the self-developmental books I read, you know, say the affirmation sentences and it will happen, right? Than if you are very pessimistic. But the right balance should be there. And the other thing is, which any entrepreneur, especially first-time entrepreneur or founder, this is called China syndrome. This is about optimism. If we are able to serve to just 0.5% of companies in China, now who have been there at the beginning of your first company or your first enterprise or adventure, saying like, oh, huge potential. Who've been there? Few hands, brave people. I see it across the ring from that, especially pre-seed and early stages of enterprises. Think a new career as an entrepreneur, just watch this out, and maybe talk to some people who are experienced. They will help you. And then there is the sunk cost concept, okay? And this is something for everyday life. It's so much in our enterprise, in our company, in the people. And with energy, we didn't sleep, you know it all. And now, should I actually be very persistent and be set up and invested in? Well, sometimes yes. But sometimes we are just protecting something which doesn't into that before. Be aware of that bias, because nothing is healthier in the business. The art of leadership, part of the art of leadership, is saying no to the things which no longer serve, saying no to, but also to projects or products which do not, because you are deciding about future success and future costs. Very difficult to think. And the last one, which I see very often, especially in well, I understand the customers because I am the one. I am doing this service for people like me, so I understand it. Solution of the customer's problem. And when those people come to the customers to validate, ask leading questions, because we are all suffering from confirmation bias. We want to hear enough, we'll ask that way. So, be aware of those biases, actually do much better than before, even much better. And then don't forget, it starts and ends if you are still active in your startup and in your company. You know, you are the biggest liability for your organization, let's face it, yeah? So you need to have it right internally for yourself. Do you have a purpose? Individual purpose? Or maybe think about it a little bit. Well, our purpose, our work purpose, lies somewhere where those 4 areas cross. at what I love, what the world needs, and what the world is willing to pay for, I can have a strong sense of me. My offer is start with yourself, because you are not only the highest liability, but also the organization. You are the one who are creating the culture in the organization. And to be very honest, could have changed recently, right? Maybe the purpose before and after might have changed. Just write it down. We all think we have things in the head. Unless we write it down, we don't know if we have it there. Because the neural net is not the linear speech to somebody when we need to speak to somebody. And then look at your values. Do you have values? Yes. But sometimes we don't know which values are the most important for us. And once you have values, once you understand your purpose, maybe you want to have a look at some organization you want to build. How I want my organization to look like. Now, I don't want you to read it, right? If you Google Teal organization, you will so on. But this is really important thing, and a lot of startups, but even like bigger companies, don't have a club. Be speaking about every single style of organization, yeah? This is mafia driven by power and fear. Those three in the middle types of organization, and select in your head which one you want to be and you want to build. And don't try to be over-optimistic. Who loves hierarchy and rules, you will not be able to build the organization which is very free. So have free organizations, but if it's not you, waste of time. I have seen it so many times to build the organization which is about delighting customers and shared values and engagement and stakeholder, which is the green one, which is where Google is, for instance. Yeah? But actually, by everyday behavior, so more hierarchy, more about profit, more about accountability, more about innovation, but less about values, less about decision-making freedom, which is in the green one, right? Or even here, which is the military example. Rules, consequences of behavior, but stability have the purpose. So think about those things. Where do you want to be? Because you want to have the best, highest salaries. So you compete for people to work with you based on the values. Now, especially with the girls and boys who are now at the end of the secondary school, high school, gymnasium, and first of them are now leaving university, so they are coming to the workplace actually, and you will want to hire the best of them. They want to be aligned on the values, and they really deeply care about the company culture. It's nice to have. It must have, if you want to compete in the market meaningfully. Maybe you say blah, 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 a lot of words like that. Or, I don't know how to. Now, one simple way how to think about it is thinking about the impact. And this helps you answer a lot of things we were talking about a minute ago. It's also double check everything what you are doing. You don't need to do the vision, mission, strategy, all these things. Your impact you want to have as a person and as a company. And think about on your friends, on your community, in your town, in your industry, in your country. You select. It's okay to wish to have an impact. But so many people are actually leaving this kind of, we will see, always very good. If you define that, because then you can measure whether you are achieving it, yes or no. But if you have an impact in Belarus only, in this type of industry, that's perfectly okay. But then don't, just because you woke up one day and thought it's a good idea, or somebody told you, right? You can change this all. And to be honest, you know, we all have impact. We have it. If we plan it or if we don't plan it. So it's, will it be easy? No. But actually we don't want this to be easy, right? And if we are in flow, by the way, by the research of McKinsey, we are 5 times more productive right? So if you want to be more in flow and to be 5 times more productive, then you cannot do easy things. We are not in flow when we are doing too easy things. We are bored. And challenge is small, boring. And we are not in flow. If I challenge anxiety, right? Did you have high skill in here? Probably not. Was the challenge high? Did you find yourself having an anxiety sometime? So what we are looking for our startups and for ourselves personally is it out. You can find much more about it. When we are in flow, we are more productive, and we don't burn out, funnily enough. And then the basic stuff. Again, your company, think about doing right things right. Very right. It actually doesn't matter. If we do wrong things, we can do it right or we can do it wrong. I suggest it's better. What are the things what will help you actually to do right things right? Well, what problem do they have? What will they get from me? Minimum viable product. Okay, how do I know that it's actually minimum product, not my preferred product or service? Something what customers would say, well, you know, I would be much worse off if I don't have this. This is your minimum viable product, okay? Very brutally honest to yourself and cut off all the things which are not necessary, because it will be much easier, much cheaper, and much to the meaningful size so that you can start scaling. So think about it often as they are starting, they are really trying to speed, they don't think about those things enough. And I hear when I'm mentoring and I ask them, so why do you exist and who is your customer, what problem do they have and stuff. I spent like few weeks discussing that 2 months ago and I have a big presentation somewhere. Let me find it, I will tell you. Don't be that guy. Also sometimes when I ask them this question, they tell me with a lot of details and a lot of irrelevant stuff in it. That guy maybe also doesn't understand it. Simple words, that famous elevator speech, you know, 90 seconds or 1 minute, and we can say we're trying to solve, then we can actually be little things right. And sometimes it takes going deeper, just as simple as that. So select your mentor somewhere. Somebody who is good, your coach, who can ask good questions. One of the examples, you know, I was mentoring the African startup, the guys who wanted to help the community. They observed that a lot of startups, a lot of companies kind of don't survive half a year or whatever. And they realized that it's because the financial education and understanding is non-existent, basically. And sometimes those owners, they don't understand they should be writing down the costs of doing business, yeah, what costs they have with a business. So they prepared the app, which helped those owners to make some basic financial audit and continue with healthy finances. And when I asked them, they said, well, we are doing it for people who are starting the businesses and they don't know what are the how they should run their finances, and then they go bankrupt, and we want to make it easy for them. And I said, oh, this doesn't sound right. This is what you do, yes, but what you are really doing, and we started to talk about the impact. And at the end of 45 minutes speed mentoring, we came up with a concept which is around, we want to help African families to develop a sustainable business so that their kids and grandkids have a source of income and source of life. Goosebumps? Is it stronger? And we choose to help them because we understand one of the major problems is in managing the finances. But this is the purpose, actually, of that organization. Now, if we think about like 5 years from now, maybe the financial education will be somewhere else, and maybe African businesses will be more educated. They still have something to do, because the next thing in line will be something which will be also important for families to grow their businesses for next generations. So what I'm inviting you to do is to dig deeper, because how we got there was short 15-minute discussion when I was asking them, why? 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 If you ask 7 times why, or what will it do, how else you can say it, how else you can do it, then you dig really deep into the essential human needs. And one thing which we all should understand is that we are not into B2B or B2B2C or whatever. We are in H2H. We are human to human business. Because always we are in contact with a person who has hopes and pains and worries and problems and family or not having family. Yeah? So always it's good to think about people. When I am mentoring tech startups, they often say, well, I'm targeting the companies who are producing this, for instance, with my product. And I say, okay, who is the decision maker? Who decides? And they say, well, it's difficult because the decision maker is different from user. Very often it is so. So I need to understand both of them. And I need to understand the motivation of those people. Google actually uses for startups one great lab, a people lab, which I'm facilitating also. And they say there are 3 types of motivations people have. One comes from the head, one from the heart, and one from the pocket. And we should understand those motivations for the decision maker and for the user. And think about it. And if I want to sell something to the decision maker, what actually wakes those people up at night? Well, typically in IT industry, for instance, we don't have people. We don't have engineers, we don't have developers. There is lack of good people in the market, and I need to secure them. I don't want them to leave. Now when I understand that, I can actually come to the decision maker and say, and by the way, if you use this solution, your developers will be much happier because they will not need to spend time doing bullshit stuff, but really something what nobody else can do. This is what they love to do, right? They don't want to be bored, if you remember the picture. They don't want to do easy stuff, they want to do challenging stuff. And now we are there. And I am getting signals that I should be finishing, right? Okay. So, last thing what I want to invite you is to measure. Because if you want to have any impact, you have to measure it. And I would like to invite you to look into OKRs. This is one of the most brilliant, simple, practical and pragmatic ways of measuring. And you know that I have been board member in huge companies who have like KPIs and strategies and OGSMs and I don't know, you name it. But the OKR is my favorite because it links through objectives, it links your purpose and everything, down to few measurements which will tell you whether you are achieving or not achieving what you wanted. And sometimes startups ask me, Ivana, we are just starting, we are 5 people, should we really measure? We know it all. Yes, please measure from the very beginning. First, you will need a history. And second, how do you know that you are doing the right things? Once you start implementing the proper measurement system, it streamlines really any discussion. Because anytime, as a founder, as a CEO, you can say, how this proposal helps us achieve this OKR. Does it? If no, we have two options. Either we don't have right OKRs, let's review them then, or we should not be doing it. It's just nice to have, thank you very much. And it's very easy. You don't need to explain why it's not a good idea, because you have your OKRs, which once you start using it, and once they start improving and being more and more relevant, because you will not do it overnight immediately, people will be able actually to make their own decisions much easier. They will not need to come to you for decision, because they will ask themselves the question. So, this is my invitation to measure everything, including your impact. And at the very end, I would like to ask you to take your phones again and tell yourself, what impact can we have, can you have, or do you want to have? Maybe something what looks impossible at the moment, but dream a little and write it down. It takes a minute before it starts appearing, but I see you writing.
Ivana, while people are writing, I have a question. I'm here, Ivana. I'm here. Here.
Oh, here.
Yes. While people are answering, I have a question from our online streaming. I'm sorry, guys, for some technical problems with the streaming. It was the problems with the internet. I hope that it's not KGB. But we also have one question from the translation. How to develop empathy to clients, partners, or market? So maybe just a quick answer for this question.
Can you try to say differently as well?
How to develop empathy to clients, partners, market. Maybe you have just like one sentence, how to
develop the empathy, how to understand them better, how to understand what they are feeling, and so on.
Yes.
Talk to them, guys. Talk to them. Very often startups are asking me, but how do I find out? Call them, go for coffee, talk to them, ask them. You know, you'll be surprised if you start asking questions about motivation, not like what motivates you, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. But something like, what is really important for you? What are the biggest issues you are trying to solve right now? People will be more than happy to tell you, actually. I understand that some people might be more introverted and don't feel so comfortable doing that. But then select somebody, maybe you are a few co-founders, select the big mouth one, you know? And send those people, more extroverted people, to speak to your customers. Okay, what do we have here? Make Belarus free European country. Make positive impact. Make difference. Really friendship. Make money. Supporting humanity. Healthy. More energy. Happy. Pleasure lifestyle. New world. Personal growth. Uniting the world. Stop Russian occupation. Yes. It's a huge ambition. Solve ecological problems, better education, make a world more transparent, be useful. Now think about your company and you personally, how you can contribute to the impact you are dreaming of. And everything what you are doing will be feeling much more meaningful. Spasiba, and hack the perfect
Bunch
story.
of applause to Ivana. Thank you very much, Ivana. Thank you very much for such emotional and motivational speech. I think we all need this. Yeah. Round of applause, Ivana.